Malaysia's digital journey began more than 2 decades ago when MSC Malaysia was set up to transform the country into a knowledge-based economy. Since then, MSC Malaysia has contributed immensely towards the growth of the nation's digital economy. Our next step is to take the digital transformation from the corridor to the world. Introducing Malaysia Digital, a strategic initiative which will empower the rakyat, businesses, and foreign investments. Malaysia Digital will also elevate the participation of Malaysians and local businesses in revolutionizing the world's digital economy. Malaysia Digital opens doors for Malaysians by providing equitable access to digital tools, knowledge, and income opportunities. It offers new business opportunities and growth through a supportive digital ecosystem. It also provides flexible and agile investment facilitation to make the country investment friendly. The goal is to drive the digital ecosystem and develop the digital economy to a stage where it contributes at least 25.5% of our GDP and creates 500,000 jobs by 2025.
Malaysia Digital will galvanize public-private partnerships to accelerate the growth of our digital economy and drive positive transformation that ultimately benefit the rakyat, businesses, investors, and also the whole nation.
Establishing Malaysia into a digital nation, one with more adept, stronger, and resilient economy, society, and governance. Stepping into tomorrow's digital future today.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam perpaduan, salam Malaysia Madani. I'm pleased to share a groundbreaking initiative that is shaping the future of our nation, the National Data Sharing Policy, or NDSP. In 2022, the government launched the NDSP, a visionary policy that transcends boundaries, encompassing the public sector, the private sector, and the rakyat. This policy holds the key to fostering a data sharing environment that is not only conducive, but transformative. It aims to unleash the true potential of data, improve the quality and transparency of service delivery, stimulate innovation, and drive economic growth through data-driven solutions. The formulation of NDSP envisions a nation where data knows no bounds, where its accessibility and usability are at the core of our digital landscape. By actively engaging in this endeavor, we are laying a strong foundation for the next evolution of our digital ecosystem. We're embarking on a journey to build a stronger and more secure digital foundation for Malaysia. It is the keystone of our digital transformation agenda, empowering us to become a more inclusive, resilient, sustainable, and forward-thinking nation. Embracing responsible and ethical data sharing will unlock significant value for our society and economy, enhancing our competitiveness on the global stage. I encourage all of you to support this policy and explore the vast opportunities that data sharing presents. To raise awareness and gather valuable feedback, we have initiated the NDSP series, a collaborative effort by the Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation, or MDEC, Malaysia Kearney, and Digital News Asia, or DNA, with the support of the Ministry of Communications and Digital. This series aims to educate the public about the benefits and challenges of data sharing, while gathering opinions and suggestions to enhance the policy and its implementation. Your active participation in these discussions will be instrumental in shaping the data sharing practices in Malaysia. leading us towards a secure and dynamic digital world. And let us embark on this remarkable journey together.
A very good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 5th episode of the National Data Sharing Policy Series, jointly organized by the Malaysian Digital Economic Corporation, MDEC, Malaysia Kearney, Digital News Asia, and supported by the Ministry of Communications and Digital. We thank Work KL Central for hosting today's episode. Now I'd like to begin, and we'd like to welcome Dr. Carl Ng, Vice President of Digital Health and Digital Cities at MDEC, to give his opening remarks. Welcome, Dr. Carl.
Okay, a very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, thank you so much for attending our session today. Salam Perpaduan and Salam Malaysia Madani. Firstly, today's the National Data Sharing Policy is our 5th series of focusing on data. And today's topic, which is data and the new currency, the process. This event is a collaborative event between MDEC, Malaysia Kearney, and Digital News Asia with the support of Ministry of Communication and Digital. And the aim of this is to promote National Data Sharing Policy, which was launched in September last year. A bit about this policy. This policy aims to foster a data sharing environment and to move our country to become a data-driven nation. By looking at guidelines as well as best practices to enable citizens, businesses, and the government to share data. And today's series focuses on to educate the public about the benefits of data sharing, as well as gathering your feedback and suggestions in terms of how to enhance this policy moving forward. As all of you know, data is one of the most valuable assets that organization and individual can possess. I think in the last 6 months, there's tremendous growth in terms of the use of AI, especially ChatGPT, and powering this, it's data. Right? So whatever input that you put into ChatGPT and similar generative AI, those input are used to generate new values to the user. And just like the oil in the 21st century, data is now the new currency. Data is now the new currency for 21st century. And there are some few reasons why data is important, right? So number one, it's basically, if you don't measure, you don't know what's happening, right? So measurement is key, right? So by measuring, you get data, and with the data, you are able to know what's happening within the organizations or within the process or within an environment. And that allows us to make better decision making. That's number one. Number two, it's basically by using data, we are able to then predict what will happen in the future, right? By looking at assumptions and certain conditions, right? So this is important to allow predictability and risk management, especially for organizations as we faces the uncertainty of economic downturn and so forth, right? And lastly, data is the foundation of innovation, right? The use of data, if it's, for example, the open data in the UK, and is used for Transport of London, allows innovation in terms of different apps being created to allow different users in different segments to plan their journey, right? For example, if you are a Muslim user and if the API is linked to a Muslim halal restaurant, so you're able to take public transport to go to this venue, right? In a seamless manner. Okay, so the opportunity of data is key. You know, in the area of health, for example, electronic medical record is key to allow us to understand, you know, your allergies, you know, the treatments that doesn't work for you. And having access to this data is key to personalize and customize the care and treatment needed for you. But unfortunately, there's a lot of work needs to be done, even in the area of electronic medical record. You know, most people don't have it on your own mobile phone, right? Because it's residing in various different hospitals and so forth. So there's still a challenge in terms of data sharing, but we believe that, you know, if we develop the right policy regulations to allow this data to be shared, we're able to make use of this for greater good for everyone, right? Hence, it's important that we continue to push for initiatives such as National Data Sharing Policy, because it actually helps to position Malaysia to be the forefront in the digital economy. And with your support and as well as your contribution in the ecosystem, we are able to achieve our ambitious goal and to make Malaysia a brighter future for all. With that, thank you, and hope that you enjoy today's session. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Karl. Now let's begin the panel session for today. I would like to invite our moderator, Karamjit Singh, and also our panelists, Damian Manuel from Kearney, as well as Abid Adam from Axiata Group. Welcome. Karam, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. You want us to use mic, sir? Oh, for the audience also. Make sure everyone has one mic and the mic is working. All right. Okay, good. Yeah, I think it's just let them tap it. Anyway, while we get the mic sorted, thank you very much for coming. So, like, this is the fourth episode of our series, and just to share with you the background, the National Data Sharing Policy. So they're using the word policy still because this is something new I learned myself. Apparently, when the cabinet approves something, right, it is only at the policy level, because after the cabinet approves it, you got to then make it real by creating the language and the words and the framework, right, to submit to your members of parliament, the elected representatives of the country, right? It goes to parliament, and once the MPs have debated it and passed it, then only it becomes an acta, an act. And when it becomes an act, then all of us, business, public, and government have to follow. At the cabinet level, when the cabinet approves it, it's a policy, only the government has to follow. So the government, the departments and all that. So that's kind of interesting. I say, oh, I didn't know how that separation of things works. So just a little factoid for you. So now anyway, so this was approved by the previous government. But the present government, when they came in, they say, hey, this is a good policy. We will support it. And so what do you do now? You got to promote it, right? So hence this series between Malaysia Kearney DNA, with the support of MDEC and the ministry itself. So they say, hey, let's get people starting to talk about it. And interesting enough, when I started, asked some tech leaders, say, I'm involved in this, and I told them it's the National Data Sharing Policy. They all instinctively thought it's data protection. And I said, and I realized, hey, they're talking about data. I said, guys, no, we're talking about data sharing. So, because all the headlines around data are always about breaches, right? So we're all scared what's going on. So no, this is very unique in that sense, data sharing. And also I think Karl mentioned, because it's still at the policy level, all of you who are here and who are watching from wherever you are at home or in the office, right? This is still at the stage where they are seeking feedback. You can give feedback, and if you are a business, you want to be aggressive, you can even help shape the actual wording when it becomes an act. So this is very important point for you to know, right? You have a role to play in shaping the final, form and factor of the act itself, right? So please remember that. And so now this discussion, now we had a first panel session so we had three targets, right? We're targeting the consumer, rakyat, we're targeting government, and we're targeting business. We're having 3 panel sessions on business. This is the second one. The first one is actually data is the new oil, and we had 2 CEOs and 1 expert around the space of data, sharing their thoughts around how, when you talk about right, when you want to start on your journey, obviously you got to convince the organization. Even if the C-level and the board agrees, right, then you got to convince everyone else that, hey, we're going to start embarking on a data journey. Why? Because you must get alignment. Because even from the people on the ground level, maybe customers facing, right? Actually, when I say ground level, that's so wrong. Your customer are the highest point of a company, right? So those who are facing the customers, you need them to make sure that they are sharing the data that they collect into the systems, right? If they don't cooperate, then you're not going to get good data. And you all know about garbage in, garbage out with data, right? So you need to get alignment. So that first discussion was about alignment. And we had a gentleman, the chief data officer of QSR. You know, QSR is a big company in Malaysia. They do a lot of F&B, right? And they also actually are in farming also to make sure they get good quality produce, right, for their restaurants. And he was saying, and he was formerly with Accenture, and he was running a big group within Accenture. And he said that you always should start when you're on your data journey, when you're going to use data, start with the end in mind. As in, you know, you want to make a decision around this particular area. Maybe should we go into police or should we forget about going into police? And I use police because it's the smallest, tiniest state in Malaysia, right? And so how do you then collect the right data, harness it, right, to help you make an informed decision around that? So I thought that's quite interesting. And then he said also, even with large organizations, have an experimental mindset. And because I use large organization, because, you know, large organizations are like aircraft carriers, right? It takes them a long time to change their direction. So he said, even for large organizations, try to have an experimental mindset. So now that was the first topic, and you can read about it. DNA has written about it. You go to our website, you can read some of the key highlights from the 3 of them sharing. And today is the second one. And this talks about the process, right? The how. So we've got, it's great to have consultants with you because they have a view of many clients and not just from Malaysia, so they can share a regional perspective. And then we've got Abid, who's with one of the largest local companies. Actually, it's not even local. Started from Malaysia, but it's Asia, one of the top companies in Asia Pacific. So he's going to share the perspective how they've already forgot about the how. They already know that they want to do it, right? So now they're in the process of how do you get it done? And there's some very good questions from people who've already RSVP'd, and we're only going to take questions because people who ask questions mean they want to know. And I was telling Abid also, we find some of the questions for us may seem a bit basic, but because we're still very early in the journey, it means somebody has a hunger to know. So we're going to answer the questions, and all of you will learn from the questions that, you know, the audience has asked. And because we've got audience today also live, and you physically live, okay, now you got live stream and physically live in person, we're going to be biased here. We're going to give priority to those of you who are here, who've made the time to come to ask questions. And if we will have questions from online also, we'll try to take those also. So just so the people online know, you can go to my Facebook and whack me like saying this guy is not being fair, fine, but that's how we're going to do the session today. So what we're going to do is just quickly, as just a quick introduction, maybe Damian, just share a little bit about yourself and why you think this is an important, you know, conversation to have. And same question for you, Abid. Then we're going to go into the questions that have been posed already.
Yeah, thanks very much, Karamjit. So my name is Damian Manuel. I work in consulting. I've been consulting for about 20 years now. I started my career in Accenture, interestingly enough. And that was more on technology consulting. I then moved into the firm I'm with right now, Kearney, and we do more management consulting. I work mostly in telco, in media, and more recently in financial services as well. I've also had the opportunity to work across different countries, regions. So I've worked in many countries in Southeast Asia, in Australia, in North America, in Japan. And you know, unsurprisingly, data comes up very often as a key topic as we strive to be more digital as a nation, as agencies, government agencies, and as private enterprises as well. I think very topical data right now. I think Malaysia specifically is at an inflection point where we need to think about how we become more of a digital nation. I was just talking to Abid before this about how many large international organizations are making decisions on where they want to set up their base, where they want to set up their outsource operations. And I think Malaysia is in a very unique position where we have talents, we've got capabilities, we are starting to, we've got infrastructure, and we are starting to move from a nascent nation to a more developed nation from that perspective. So I think we have a huge opportunity, and I'm really excited to talk about it today.
Okay, great. Thanks. So by the way, among the global consulting, management consulting companies, there's like an informal top 4 or top 5. And while Kearney is not as well known as BCG or McKinsey, they're definitely in the top 4 in that rank. So, you know, it's great to have that organization perspective here. Abid, you want to just share a bit? But by the way, you're Malaysian, right, Damian?
Yes.
Okay. Abid is from South Africa. So we've got a global talent here. And I was quickly telling him, oh, you're from South Africa. In year 2000, I was going on safari. And the reason why I wanted to go to Africa is because apparently, you know, the world was supposed to end in, you know, December 31st, 1999. And then some people say, no, it'll end on December 31st, year 2000, if you follow the Aztec calendar. I say, oh, shit, I survived one deadline. I'm not going to waste my time because I've been working nonstop and I want to go for a break and go to Africa, because deep, dark, dangerous Africa. Safari was a choice of Kruger National Park or Ngorongoro Crater in Tanzania. I told him, sorry, I decided to go to Tanzania.
Bad choice.
Bad choice. No, it was a wonderful experience. But I will go to Kruger at one point. So anyway, come, let's get back to this then. And you can promote South Africa tourism after this.
Right. Good morning, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. And thank you for having me here. My name is Abid Adam. I am Axiata's Group Chief Risk and Compliance Officer. And in my purview, I look after 4 core functions, which is on risk management, data privacy, cybersecurity, and compliance, ethics, and integrity. And I'll share with you why all these things are quite integrated. My past, as you know, I'm from South Africa, and I've worked in large financial services institutions, but less about what I am and where I come from, but rather let me set the context why data is very important. So I wanted to give you some facts, and I put some data here. There was a analysis done in industry size between what we assume the CAGR is going to be. When we look at currently the traditional markets, so when I mean by traditional markets, I'm talking about telco is growing at around 2%, if you're lucky. Banking, finance, and insurance, give it a range about 3%. Auto and mobility around 4%. Utilities 6%, pharma 6%. So you take all of these is largely a single digit growth. Some high single, some low, some mid. But largely speaking, traditional businesses are growing on a single digit markets. Now let's look at tech-enabled businesses. Businesses that uses AI, blockchain, IoT, virtual and augmented reality. AI has been growing 40%. And that was prior to ChatGPT, by the way. So I'm pretty sure if you had to relook at these numbers again, that will be significantly higher. Blockchain applications were growing 67%. Internet of Things, 25%. Virtual and augmented reality, the businesses are going 47%. The short and long of this is the markets that are winning and growing at greater than 10x are those that are taking advantage of digitization and technology. So you may be wondering, where does Malaysia fall into all of this? So there is another study done by BCG that basically has done a work between 2010 to 2021. So they took a span of basically to 10 years. Malaysia, on average, the digital economy outgrew by 9.3% CAGR. So if you take everything that Malaysia has, you know, in terms of all the different industries, the digital economy grew 9.3% more than cumulatively other industries.
Wow.
And that's still 2021. So if you again do the data, I'm sure MDAC and other companies are looking at this data. I'm sure they have got more accurate data that gives you the context of why this is really important. I will end on last point, which was really around the World Economic Forum and more importantly, World Bank estimates Malaysia to become no more an emerging economy, but a developed economy between now and 2027. It's forecasted anywhere between then. It depends really how we play the game. So if you want to become a developed nation, which we have been aspiring for a very long time as Malaysians, our chance is now. So I think I will pause at that. Thank you.
Wow, interesting. Okay. So when you talk about our digital economy growing so fast, I think PICOM had they produced a report last week Thursday, and you can read the article online anywhere. And one of the things they also said was that they projected our digital economy this year as a percentage of the economy is going to be 24.2%, and next year it's going to be 25.5%. And why that is significant? The government projected, I think about like 7-8 years ago, that they hope they target the digital economy to be about 25.5% as the overall GDP by the end of next year, by 2025. But PICOM is projecting that we're going to hit that 1 year sooner. So it reinforces what you're saying about how strong our digital economy is growing. Okay, go ahead.
That's why I'm asking.
Okay.
Testing. Yeah, there we go. So that's why I'm asking the question, really, can we afford not to be part of a digital economy?
Exactly.
Can we afford not to share data? And lastly, the question is, can any company or government operate in isolation today?
True. Okay, very good. So, and you know, I think a lot of people don't realize that the progress of Malaysia as a digital economy is actually quite rapid compared to many other countries. But the good thing and the bad thing in Malaysia is we compare with that little dot down south, right? That annoying dot. And then now we compare with China also. Right, WeChat, you know, it's the app you can use for everything, but it's good. So it's sometimes policymakers get frustrated. Hey, we're doing so much within our resources, our means, and you don't get recognized for it. I say, too bad, man, right? So we want the country to be as advanced as these two, at least around where the digital economy is concerned. So nothing wrong with that. Okay, now we'll start with our questions. And oh, by the way, G. Saravanan, the CIO of TMC Life Sciences, was supposed to be here, but he had a family accident this morning, and a junior family member is receiving medical treatment. So he was in no emotional frame of mind to join us. I told him totally not to worry at all. And I was telling these two gentlemen, when you got incredible subject matter experts on the panel, you don't freak out when you're missing one person. And plus all of you are the extended panel, right? You here and those of you who are watching from home also. So Diana, I hope sorry. There's supposed to be a light on my better side here. I don't look good on the left side with the lighting. They never do that. It's so annoying.
Can I just add to your point?
Yes.
I think we are too self-critical as Malaysians. I have again the data in front of me. When they compare Malaysia across the ASEAN Digital Index, we came out second. First was Singapore. Of course, again, of course, these data obviously update all the time. Okay. This is not a static environment, as you would know. It moves quite rapid. But last time this assessment was done, the source is ASEAN Coordinating Committee on Electronic Commerce, also known as ACCEC. Malaysia was rated 72.85 as an aggregate score. Singapore was 80.70. After this was Thailand, Brunei, Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar. And in areas because there were 6 pillars in which this digital index was assessed against. On a pillar 2, which is really around data protection and cybersecurity, because that's my forte, I enjoyed that part the most. Malaysia actually was ranked higher than Singapore at 91.27% at an aggregated score. Wow. So for all the Malaysians, boleh lah.
Yeah, boleh lah. Correct. Excellent. Thank you. Abid, it feels like you're the consultant here, man. You got all these slides and data points there. So Damian's like, damn, where's my...
I understand.
Yeah, like data forums. No, you're right. And I think even in last week, the head of research for PICOM said that data does not lie. You know, and Carl lives by that. So, by the way, we have a national data, big data analytics framework that was launched in 2014, 9 years ago. Carl was in, and you know, when it's launched, means there's 1 or 2 years of work done beforehand. So we've been very much on the ball in terms of making sure that the country is aligned and we can use data in the correct way, in an ethical way, and in a way that benefits all parties. So you could have like a half-day session just grilling Carl on our data journey over the last 10 years. But anyway, Damian.
Also, Karamjit, okay. I feel a bit offended that you've made a statement. So I feel I need to...
Hey, my job is to offend and poke you guys into action. Okay, tell me.
So I feel I need to spit some facts as well.
Okay, fine. Fantastic.
So I think to further justify why data is important, if you look at your top 10 companies globally by market capitalization, 10 years ago, about 1 was a digital native and 9 were your traditional companies.
Correct.
Right now, 9 of your top 10 companies in the world by market capitalization are digital natives. So you can see a trend going in this direction.
Wow, it's flipped, man. That's not even a trend, right? It's flipped on
It's
its head.
completely flipped. The second thing is data is growing by about 25% globally, just in terms of consumption.
Wow.
This is year on year globally. So what this means is that by 2025, the average person will be interacting with data unconsciously about 5,000 times each day.
5,000 times? How is that even possible?
It's possible. It's possible in terms of the apps that you're using, in terms of social media, in terms of just the tools that you use in work as well.
Okay.
Every time you Google,
yeah,
and so forth.
Okay. Interesting. And by the way, I don't Google, I Bing. No way they're going to get any more of my data than they do. And now, thanks to ChatGPT, right? Bing is very powerful. Okay. Anyway, that aside, not that I'm promoting Microsoft's search engine and browser. Okay. So Damian, the question, right? So Damian has chosen a question that was asked by Muhammad Shuko, who's a big data engineer at Artha Solutions. Like I said, we want to take your questions. And he has asked, how do you promote data governance to non-tech companies? Interesting.
Yep. So to all the points before, I think that very soon there's not going to be such a thing as a non-tech company.
Okay.
Like every company is going to have tech in some form. Okay. It's just to what degree. And if you don't, then there's a risk that you become obsolete. So think Kodak, think Blockbuster, think Nokia before they were acquired.
Right. Wow.
So there is a definite need to adopt data in some shape or form. So once you get that buy-in, that question on how, which is what we're here for, becomes very important. And typically what I've seen, at least with some of my clients, is that when they think about data, there's kind of 3 types of data. And to dumb it down for myself, I think about it as number 1, your build data, which is your infrastructure. So what is the network infrastructure that you need that is underlying? What is your storage systems? What are the tools that you need to enable the infrastructure? So that is your foundation. The next layer up is your scale data. So how do you then take these disparate points of data and make it scalable for you as a company? So this then talks to your organization structure. Do you have a data team in your organization, or even a data person? Maybe not even a team. What is your operating model to enable the use of data? How are you kind of grabbing data from all your different collection points and making it consistent and putting it into one single data lake? So that is all your scale data. And the last is then your think data. And these then become the exciting use cases that you can use once you have data in the right form, in the right place, and it's scalable. And these use cases can be both things that you present to your customer. So think Alibaba.com, where every time you enter the website, you see a new set of products that's catered just for you based on your usage patterns. Think Netflix, where it's a recommendation engine. Or it could even be stuff that you use internally in your organization to make yourself more efficient. Example of this, I did a project with a telco in the US, and they were able to, they did broadband. They were able to tell their technicians the sequence of houses they need to do installations in to minimize their drive time. And when you minimize your drive time, it means you're more productive. You're actually spending more time in houses. I did another project for a bank in the Middle East where they tried to identify kind of life events for the individual. And based on these life events, they then start to present products that the individual may be interested in. So example of this, it's interesting to know that you're more likely to buy life insurance when you have a child, because you want to protect your family.
Yes.
So all this starts to become possible.
Okay, very interesting. Lots of things that you've shared. Great. So Abid, you took a question from a gentleman, and it's interesting, right? It's gentleman, and we didn't get his name there, but it's advice on the preservation of digital, asking for advice on the preservation of digital information in storage platform that may be outdated, right? Because with technology moving so fast. And I think this is also interesting. The underlying factor is that once you have aligned and you've decided your company is going to try to use the data that you have, right, to benefit your business, to benefit your customers. Remember, it cannot just be benefit to you, right? Otherwise, you're going to get in trouble if you're going to use the data only one-way street. Once you decided you need to do this, then you actually have to make investments. Like he was saying, right? Either you have a data person or a data team, and most companies will start with maybe a data engineer or, or data manager or even a data executive, I don't know. But there definitely will be a cost factor there. And maybe at some point, especially with Axiata, maybe you can share, what has been for a large company, right? What has been the cost investment so far, in getting your systems aligned so you can take advantage of the data you have. But before that, just this question first.
Yeah, so maybe before I answer the question you asked me, when you think about data, normally think about it on 4 or 5 V's, all right? What I mean by that is number 1 is the volume of data, all right? So first V is the V of volume, because obviously you collect too much data or too little data. That's something you need to think about. So if you think about a framework, if you just had a sort of a whiteboard and you need to think about data, think about it from that angle. The second part of the second V of that 4 V's that I spoke about was largely on the velocity of the data. And what I mean by that is, do you need real-time data or can you do batch processing? So it's the speed at which the data is generated. Of course, some systems like internet banking, you may need real-time data, but maybe statements that you need to produce at the end of the month, you may not need it real-time. So every business differs, but you need to understand the veracity or the velocity of the data. The third part is the variety of the data. Again, there it comes to what Damian touched on. Are you looking at structured data, semi-structured data, unstructured data? So sending emails and let's say gathering consumer sentiment maybe in an unstructured manner, or it could be a survey that's done in a very structured manner. So one needs to think about, when you think about the data, as to what is that framework you're looking at in terms of collecting, processing, storing, deleting, the life cycle of the data, basically. The fourth part is the veracity of the data. And that's really around the quality of the data, the reliability of the data. Because you can collect a lot of data. It can be in a very structured manner, and I can get it in real time. But if the quality is not good, what's the use? What's the use? So you really have to think about, when you think about data, and before you start on this journey and spend a lot of time and money and investments and resources, start with a simple framework 4 or even a 5V, which I call a viscosity of the data. You put all of that and say, okay, what is the right thing for your organization? Because what's right for Axiata, it doesn't necessarily mean it's right for your organization, because we have different clientele, different markets, different business models, and so forth. But the model itself is universal in nature. I'm not sure if, Damian, you have any view on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think 5 V's are standard, but I think how you apply the 5 V's needs to be dependent on the organization that you're in, and also what stage in the life cycle you're in. Similar to countries where you're nascent, you're advanced, as an organization as well, you are at different stages. So I think it's important to do a self-evaluation to understand where you are at and where you want to kind of jump onto that train. Because if you're nascent, then you don't want to have a data lake. Maybe you just want to have one person that you hire to start to organize your data. Something to think about.
Going back to the question on the preservation of the velocity, I said the viscosity, the one I touched on. Yes. Yeah. Viscosity.
Viscosity.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So is the elasticity of the data, how long and how the usage of the data itself? Because I can use the data today, but tomorrow is irrelevant.
Viscosity. Great. Thanks a lot for asking that. So if you have something you don't understand in real time, just put up and say, sorry, I didn't understand that, right? By all means, please do that.
Okay. I think it's a good question that the person asks is, how do you preserve data? So whoever has been in tech for a while would know that when initially we back up data, it was on tapes, right? Yeah. Then from tapes, we went to storage area network, high availability networks, and now it's almost cloud, so you may not even see the data itself. But what remains consistent when I reflect on from the time, even at home, you may be backing up with first with the floppy disk, then CD-ROM, then USB stick, and now maybe your drive, Google Drive.
No, I mean, we accidentally tend to switch it off because the power button is right here when you're holding it. So just turn it back on.
Okay. So I think even on a personal journey, never mind companies itself, your own journey, you can see the evolution of how you have been saving data. But what doesn't change is few things. One is understanding certain standards that has evolved over a period of time. So try and adopt standards that are universal in nature, because those standards will allow you to transfer data, and the companies that develop the underlying infrastructure has to adopt those standards. The second part I made a note of was metadata and documentation. So data about data. How do you keep it's almost, if I could use a simple analogy, it's if you go in a library, you have a card, and a card has indexing. So you keep like, okay, row A or column A, block A will have a book on nonfiction. So you put that. Then obviously nonfiction had a lot of books. So it's data about data is the metadata. You want to make sure that you keep a good handle of that, because that will allow you to understand how you store, archive, retrieve information. So imagine otherwise you're going into the library, in one corner is nonfiction, the same corner is other genre of the books and so forth. It will be crazy. You can't figure out. Then is the format migration and conversion. And what I mean by that, you need to look at, example, I don't know if you notice sometimes when you want to save your picture, even just a picture, sometimes it's in a JPEG format, sometimes
correct, PNG. Yeah. Correct. Yeah, okay. No. just hold the mic at the bottom, then easier. So you don't accidentally press the power button. Yeah.
So it's a different file format that you save the pictures or the data on. Be careful and also consistent. Because one of the things that really gets a lot of the organization is when you're doing migration is the inconsistency of, and you will have to maintain a lot of different types of software to recover your data itself. Then obviously, if you have a mission critical environment, then you would have to emulate your legacy environment. So you have to create an environment in which you can take the data from the old environment and put it in. Because if your example, I'll give you a good example. Now everybody said go to cloud, okay? If you have old systems, legacy systems, if you still have mainframe systems, and the formatting of that data and the environment it was in created and tested and created and used in is very different to the cloud environment, you will have a problem. So then you'll have to create an environment and have a phased approach in which you will be able to migrate your data from the on-prem to off-prem. And that's a journey that the organization needs to take. Maybe then I will end with thinking about the legal and compliance considerations.
Okay.
And these are very important because
yes,
data preservation dictates the retention periods and your formats also. So if you are, example, in financial services, and if you are providing home loans, maybe you'll have to keep data for 30 years, 40 years. I don't know how long it.
Oh, okay. Okay. I thought you had a jumpy thumb there. Okay, it's working now.
Yeah. So I think what I would recommend is look at your specific industry or the vertical you're operating, understand the legal requirements. And nowadays, one of the issues, we speak a lot about globalization. Actually, it's reversal of globalization that we are seeing, where the countries and economies are becoming a lot more closed and protective, all right? And with that, there's a word called digital sovereignty that's coming in. And you notice that a lot of hyperscalers are now building data centers in the country itself because data can't go out.
Yeah.
So if your backup is, I'm going to back up in another country, and the government has a different view of how the data needs to be, especially if you are holding sensitive information,
correct,
you may have a problem. So I pause there, but hopefully that gives you some few things to think about on data preservation, migration, and obviously this sort of.
No, I love it. No, look, because now we're in the second part where you're talking about the process, right? You need to share some of the nitty-gritty that people need to know. Oh, I wasn't aware of that. So very important. No, that's good. Fine. So look, I've got a question then for, move on to a question for Damian. And this is a question asked by Abdul Latif, who's the Executive Director of TriCore. And actually, coincidentally, TriCore is my company secretary, but it's a big company out of Hong Kong. And they came into Malaysia by acquiring my previous company secretary. So now they're actually in Bangsa South. Not here, sorry, I'm pointing down here, but they're in Bangsa South. One of the largest company secretary businesses in Asia Pacific. Interesting that he's asked this question. And imagine as the executive director asking. So I said, how do you balance data privacy and data monetization?
Yep.
Very good question.
Yeah, very relevant question as well. And you find that both go hand in hand. So when you monetize data, the other side of the coin is how do you protect personal information? How do you protect consumers? And this is effectively what the NDSP is trying to solve for. So it is trying to come up with a framework where data can be shared in a responsible way. And this is not something new. This is what many developed nations, all developed nations, have developed in their own policies as well. And as they develop it, what you find is that there is a tension. There's a tension between two parties. The first is the consumer, and the second is the private enterprise. There is a third player, which is the government, but maybe let's leave them out for a second. So what you find is that both of these parties tend to want different things. Consumers want to ensure that their personal information, their data is protected, similar to what Karamjit was saying. Hence, he doesn't use Google. Whereas private enterprise want regulation that enables them to do business, that enables them to monetize. Now, the answer is not to completely favor one party over the other. The answer is to have a balance in policy across the two. But the trick is that that balance is never perfect. So there's always a slight lean towards one party or the other. So as an example, if you look at the US, they tend to balance more towards private enterprise. And this is why their promotion is more towards a capitalist nation. They want to encourage that kind of private enterprise growth. Conversely, you look at European Union, and over there, the lean is more towards people like you and me. So there is an overemphasis on protection, on ensuring that our personal information doesn't get shared. As Malaysia starts to think about their policy through NDSP, as this starts to get approved in cabinets, the thing we need to do is to take these learnings from countries and to see how we want to strike a balance. And striking that balance becomes very critical in terms of developing economic value for the country. How? Number one, foreign direct investment. Number two, your domestic direct investment. Number three, job creation. And number four, most importantly, protection for you and me in terms of our personal information.
Can I just elaborate? The question was very specific. The person asked how. All right, I'm going to answer that. But before I answer that, I would like the audience to raise their hand. Who buys a product or service from somebody they don't trust?
It's an interesting question. Of course, the answer would be no, right?
Okay, so nobody here buys a product or service from any company or individual that you don't trust. So our starting premise on any engagement from this audience at least is the hypothesis is I have to trust you. Am I right? That's your starting hypothesis. If that's your starting hypothesis, then why do we see a friction between innovation and monetization? What is the reason? Any view from anybody on the audience? I know I'm supposed to be answering, but I think let's keep it engaging.
Yeah,
so I'm sure you must have some thoughts. There's no right or wrong answer, but let me ask that question. Why is there tension between innovation and monetization when it comes to data? What do you think? What would be the reason? Control, okay. Okay, so that's one part, but you still have a control today. So if you're subscribing to even Google, Google gives you full access to the data. You can download your data, delete the data. Then why does Karamjit still don't trust Google? Because Google doesn't say once you give me the data, your email, you can't delete it, you can't take it. So there we go. You got the right word. Spot on, consent.
Consent.
The issue is consent. That's where the issue comes in. So you ask the question, how you balance. The first thing you have to do is seek consent. Now, consent is made up of two components. I can ask consent, but I can ask implicit or explicit. Now, let me tell you where the issue comes in with most of the companies, including when you say Google, you don't trust.
Yep.
All companies in past, or most companies, all is the wrong word, most companies in past have used implicit consent.
Implicit.
Yes. So what does that mean? You sign up with me
Correct.
for product A, all right? Over a period of time, I have a lot more other products. I want to do cross-selling, upselling, side-selling, whatever sell. To sell the product, all right? Now you feel...
Abid, let's just change mic. Yeah, yours is magically going on.
Now you feel, I didn't sign up for this. How is it another third party who company A, I signed up for product A, is suddenly sending me a product or service? The issue comes in is, when you signed up, when you read this whole terms and condition, in there some legal clause that said you give us consent to sell and then share and pass the data to data broker or third party affiliate companies, whatever the case is. That's why the revised laws, including GDPR, is very specific. It says you must seek for explicit consent. Right now, at Axiata, we're working in Indonesia, example, the Indonesian government has passed their Personal Data Protection Act, which specifically states that in next 2 years, all companies in Indonesia, example, has to seek for explicit consent. So that addresses the issue on building trust, because I'm going to ask you every time you're going to buy a product or service from me for your explicit consent. Now, on the flip side, issue comes in is user experience and all the investments that you need to do to get explicit consent. Because now, at the same time, user want completely sleek, smooth experience. How many of you raise hands here, you will sign up at a new app when you log in, ask you for 10 times for your consent before you get to actual product? Be honest with me, how many of you? After 1 or 2 times you ask, say, move on, I don't want to use this app anymore, this product, am I right? So that is where the friction lies in between transparency and consent, between collection and user experience. And that is something not only Malaysia, but companies globally are trying to figure out, how do we address the need to get the explicit consent, build trust, give you control, yet provide you the most seamless, smooth experience.
And I think this is a particular challenge if your market are the consumers, because then you've got a large, a group of customers. If you're doing B2B, then different. You may have tens or hundreds of customers, easier to manage that dynamic. But if you're in the B2C space, good luck to you. But it is, a reality that's going to happen.
I'll just touch on 2 more things. There's a few other things I could talk about, but just 2 that would really help. The concept of data minimization. I think there's this wrong fallacy that the more data I collect, the better we will be in the company. That's actually not true. I speak to a lot of my counterparts and network in countries that have gone through this journey and are still going through. So in Europe, if you look at it, within European Union, Germany is most strict when it comes to data privacy, data protection.
Germany, I thought it was the whole European Union, because they legislated their GDPR, right? 4 years ago.
But Germans are
even higher.
They're very, very, very protection about that.
Okay.
In Germany, when they were rolling out the GDPR, banks were deleting data.
Deleting data?
Deleting data. Not collecting data, deleting data. Because you said what? Liability. The more data you have, the more data you need to protect.
Wow, interesting.
When you have to pay, I think it's 4 or 2% of your gross revenue in GDPR fines, cumulative revenue, you better make sure the data you're collecting is the data you need and not collecting data for sake of collecting data. So companies in Germany, example, and many countries actually have gone through what the data cleansing process. And in the data cleansing process, they have basically made sure that the data they collect really is the data they need for the product, services, analytics, and everything else they've deleted. Because sometimes the liability is greater than the upside opportunity.
The upside, yeah, of course.
So always balance the question by asking, what is the upside? What is my downside? And a most important question, what is the downside we cannot live with?
That's reputational risk, right? If you do something and your brand is damaged in the market, you're dead.
Okay, I'll end my last point by monetization models. Okay. When you think about digitized products, always try and prioritize data privacy as part and parcel of your products and services. Because example, I'll give you an example. You want to launch a product. And we do example, you mentioned Axiata's journey. We have a whole company called ADA, our digital advertising business. The notion that if I profile an individual versus profiling a group is very different. Because individual targeting versus group profiling has a very fine balance between individual right to privacy versus exposure to the day-to-day habits. So let me ask you this one more question here. Who came from this morning downstairs at the registration and who had to fill in the white form? Who filled in downstairs? Raise your hands. Okay, everyone. What did you notice when you were filling the form? What did you fill? Can anybody tell me what did you fill this morning on that form? What did they ask you for? Okay. Oh, okay. So I ask your RC, passport number, your phone number, your name, and every person that's standing behind you has the full visibility of it. Wow. How many of you filled it in? Raise your hands. Be honest. How many filled the details? Your phone number, your IC, all of that. Okay. Raise your hands. How many of you went to go complain to the management office that this, or at least understand? Like, help me understand, why are you collecting this data? Who did that? But do you see what I mean? I went to the office, to be honest. I wasn't happy putting my details. Okay. So I went to the management office and I asked the management office to consider the whole white sheet because I was very, very uncomfortable putting my details on that. That is a very simple example that I can share with you when you think about your data models, your business process, monetization versus innovation. Because I cannot, for a life of me, fathom why I need to give my passport number to get an access to here. Yeah, true. That is why I'm saying, I'm not agreeing to that, but I'm asking the question that the people that define and design these processes, have they taken a moment to ask the question, why do we need this? And that goes to my point early on, which I made second on data minimization. Just because you can collect does not mean you must collect. Okay, correct. Oh, sorry, can you get her the mic, please? Hold on. Good, thank you, hold on. And Damian, you can jump in also. I'll have your question after this.
Okay, I came in later after your complaint. Okay. I think your complaint really helps and works because I don't have to fill up the IC number and the phone number. So I just need to fill up my name, my company, the time that I come in and sign. That's it. Thank you. Wow.
Exactly. When I came also, I just had that, embarrassingly, a full scrap paper, and I just put in name from my company name. That's all. So nothing else. So I didn't realize you were the instigator for them to, to sanitize it, man. Thanks a lot. But otherwise, some places you have to. It's frustrating. By the way, I was involved in a conference on Tuesday, and it was hosted by Affin Bank, and then they were giving free coffee, and it was good coffee up there. And I didn't go for the coffee, but somebody saying that, hey, they asked for your email and they asked for your name, it's fine, but they asked for your email also before you get the free copy. I say, my goodness, the bank is harvesting data, man. Crazy. So I need to find out what they're going to do with the data as the host. Sorry, go ahead. You have another question? Hold on. Can we get the mic again, please? Hello, mic to the lady again. Yeah, come.
There's a condominium. When I go in, they have to take my driving license and keep it there until I go out. Then they give it back to me. So I know a lot of places have ruled out this already because there's a chance of theft and losing. But this high-end condominium says that the MOs is the one who insists and they can still do it. Are they allowed? Yeah.
You see, whether they're allowed, like I said, you can interpret the law in 100 different ways.
Yeah.
My experience, that lady at the reception, when I asked her a question, first, she became very defensive. Secondly, she could not answer my question.
I'm not surprised.
She could not answer my question. And I wasn't rude or anything. I just said, help me understand. I'm just curious, what are you going to do with my passport number? Because if I'm a scammer, as you know, Malaysia and many countries globally, it's not just about Malaysia. It's not about Malaysia, issue of scammers. With that, I just need to take a photo. And it's not anything. Everybody's just following and there's a whole troll of people. I just take a photo. I can tell you I come from cybersecurity background, amount of fraud I can create with that information. Because you have given me everything I need to open up a lot of accounts. But the person...
Oh, just press it again some more.
So they haven't been trained. And if you don't provide the training, you know, the question was asked, how do we balance monetization with innovation and so forth? If somebody could even give me a good reason why they're keeping the data, I, as a customer, going back to your point on control and consent, I'm okay, but give me a reason behind it. So when we think about that, that's very, very important, whether allowed or not, because PDPA is very broad. You can interpret the law. If they can keep your data, they can keep it safe, because they can say that I use it because in an instant of emergency, I can clearly know who I need to contact, your family and his passport. Yeah, sure. But give me the sense of comfort that when I leave you with my ID, there will be no cloning being done. What is the process? Whether it's a high-end condominium or the building downstairs.
You know, the issue of garbage in, garbage out, right, is a overused and well-known phrase. At the registration counter, a lot of people just scribble and there's no validation of the data. So all these are garbage data. You know, I wouldn't say whether I wrote anything legible or not, but you just scribble and they'll let you go. So what's the use of going through that motion and process, which is actually quite useless?
But I was trying to answer the question how I gave the 3 things you can look at. I give you another 10 things, right? But the more importantly is I started my whole commentary by asking you a question. Do you do business or buy products or services from people you don't trust? Ultimately, me putting my details there was my conscious something telling me I don't trust this. I don't trust when I walk away from here that my information is going to be kept confidential. What it boils down to at the bottom sense. From a simple thing like registration to buying products or services, or you not wanting to do business with Google, it boils down to trust. That is it. So you have to ask the question, what needs to be done so that I can earn and keep trust?
Interesting. This is just a multi-layered, multifaceted question. And you know, although this conversation is about how businesses are adopting us, even the first one also, there's so many people ask questions about data on a personal level, because there's still that distrust and almost that sense of hopelessness, right? That your data is out there already. So that's why I, use Bing and Edge, as my browser and my search engine. So give the middle finger to Google, and you got enough data on me, you're not getting any more. But anyway, there's a good question that Damian is taking from somebody from the audience is, what are some of the interesting and innovative use cases, right, that you've seen that create win-win for business and the consumer? So it's a fantastic timing. It goes in with what people are questioning also, right? Where's the win-win for that gentleman, for her, and for the rest of us?
Yeah, look, I think and do we have a lot more time?
I don't know. We're fine with time. Yeah.
Okay.
We're fine with time.
All right, understood. So maybe just before getting into the use cases, just to maybe address that question on concern on how on your personal information.
Sorry, just give my mic.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Just addressing the point of personal information, I think the way a lot of organizations try to do it is to not go down to an individual level, but to kind of think about it at the aggregate level. So how do you club customers into customer segments or into customer archetypes, and then use that information to deliver better services? So then you may not necessarily be targeted for a product because of you specifically, but rather because you have done some things that fits into an archetype, right? So I think that's one way that that a lot of organizations try and protect your personal information while still giving you a service. Then, let's then talk about some of the services, right? So I mentioned before that there's stuff in the front end, there's stuff in the back end. I think stuff in the front end, we're all very aware of. As I mentioned, there's Alibaba, there's Netflix, Telenor. There's a pretty interesting thing as well, where this Telenor group, where when you run out of credits for data, they use self-learning algorithms to decide what offer to present to you in terms of your usage. Is it an offer that gives you better rates for peak usage, for off-peak usage? I mentioned before that there was a bank in the Middle East as well that will present products to you based on your specific needs. And that goes back to putting you in the right kind of archetype so that you're not actually bombarded by offers, but rather you're given a nudge. You're given a nudge to say that, this might be something of interest to you. Would you be interested? If yes, then, let's have a further conversation about it. So I think the learning that I take personally from this is that there's a lot of opportunity in Malaysia to learn from what's happening globally, to kind of not fall into the pitfalls that we are seeing with Google, with Facebook, and so forth. So I think it's not about being too invasive in your use cases, but rather trying to integrate yourself into what a customer wants. I think specifically today, as we have a more digitally savvy younger generation that's coming up, that are a lot more assertive in who they buy from, you need to be mindful of that as well. And then to your point that Abid made about collecting too much information, that is part of being intrusive. So I think the name of the game here is to, rather than being on the side of the spectrum where you are bombarding, where you're intrusive, you are more enabling a lifestyle that a consumer wants. That's my perspective.
If I could add on the use cases, I can give you a few operating companies across Southeast Asia that where we use
Southeast,
data.
okay, that's good. Yeah.
So
just quickly, Abid, before I forget, because you mentioned Alibaba already, and 11/11 is coming up, and a Malaysian was invited to visit Alibaba to visit it on the day of 11/11, and he sent me a picture. He said, "Karam, like their war room, it's a whole room, and the walls are filled with screens with data of different regions, right?" And he said they're analyzing in real time. Hey, there's a surge of demand from Zhejiang province for instant noodles, spicy instant noodles from Malaysia. Their warehouses are already, and they're already moving more products there. It's all happening in real time by the minute. It just blows your mind how this organization, enterprise, has come to that level of sophistication of using data, right? Insane. Just at a different level.
I'll give you 3 very separate use cases, an example at Axiata, how we use data to make very lives and livelihood changes for people on the ground. As you may know, in Sri Lanka, they went through a terrible crisis.
Oh, yeah, right? Of course.
Terrible crisis. Yeah. And still, I think now it's much better. So much so that there was no fuel, basically the country was falling power. So Dialogue, which is one of our entities in Sri Lanka.
Yes, you all have direct experience there. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, they came up with a system working with the government where they knew exactly basically how much fuel, because they put a quota system. Because there was no fuel, there was a long line of queues for the fuel. So everybody needed to have an equal access to the fuel every day. And they used the data and obviously the telemetry and all of that to give right amount of fuel to right people on a daily basis. so that the country wasn't a grinding halt, that one person wasn't benefiting more than another person itself. So that's one specific use case. In Indonesia, different use case, farmers go out for fishing in one of the provinces, I forgot the name. One of the things they need to know is what is the weather like every morning.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Yes. And another operating company called Excel provides real-time weather data and where they are, what they're trying to achieve, and then give them that information. And those fishermen use that data on a daily basis to then know when is the right time to go out in the ocean.
Ah, interesting. Just a quick snippet. We've got a space agency, I think the National Remote Sensing Agency. It's a unit under our National Space Agency. And the director told me once that they actually are able to help our fishermen to tell them where the fish are going to be that morning also. They observe it in real time, say, wow, this is Malaysia, and our satellite agency is able to help our fishermen to that extent, right? You can even get down to that granular level. Amazing.
So my last use case on the enterprise side, there are two, if I take sort of enterprise level, not a consumer level, there are two sort of use cases I can share. One is the distribution model of the branches and the footprint usage on daily basis, monthly basis. So during COVID, example, we needed to know where to serve, who to serve, when to serve.
Okay.
And the use of data analytics really helped us understand where is the highest foot flow traffic, where are people actually going, what kind of help they need. And they were able to then provide the right product and right services to those individuals and able to manage the risk between which branches people can visit, what they need to do, and so forth. The second use case that I can share with you, which we're still working on, is moving towards autonomous networks. What I mean by autonomous networks, even during COVID, a lot of people moved from city to their village or closer to where they live. Now, when you design networks, you obviously design where there's a higher traffic and throughput and bandwidth and so forth. Of course, that's always going to be higher in the city rather than in rural areas, but COVID spun that around completely. So with the knowledge and understanding we have, we're now building networks which allows us, without human intervention, to swing the load automatically and create bandwidth and capability and capacity based on demand that's coming through and the usage by the people itself. So that's another good use case that you can use, that I can share, that without good quality data, without understanding the flow of information, you can never build autonomous networks to provide good products, good experience, and good service to your consumers.
And actually, maybe just building onto that really quickly, you touched on a really important point, which is convergence. So that whole thing about autonomous network is effectively a convergence between network and IT.
Yeah.
And what you're seeing is that there's more and more convergence happening. What it means for organizations as well is partnerships. So how do you partner with other organizations that are adjacent to you? And how do you share data between organizations to provide better services to your customers? So what you find is that, if you think about your value chain that you are a part of, thinking about who your neighbors are in the value chain becomes more and more important if you want to, what I said before, integrate yourself into the lifestyle of the customer.
Okay. Thanks. There's a question from the gentleman at the back. And then after this, we'll take a question from Luke Raj, who's watching live and has posed a question telco related. So, but go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so I'd just like to
hold the mic closer to your.
I'd just like to add on to what the speaker said about data and value. And obviously, it's a very obvious statement that not all data is of equal value, it's of equal veracity. So, I'd like to bring up the point that, we now have technologies that are able to ascertain that to assist in the veracity. For example, digital signatures, right? You are able to now tell that where a particular data originated from, whether it has been changed in the process of, sitting in somebody's database for an extended period of time. The other thing is that, there are obviously consequences in making decisions on data when the value has been miscalculated. For example, we all know of cases where people's credit worthiness gets trashed.
Okay.
because of use of bad data, right? And so the concept is it's important to put in place both technical mechanisms and operational imperatives, I would say, so that service providers are actually obliged to take care when they use data.
No, it's good. He's hinting at, this is like the nitty-gritty, the rules and policy alignment you need, right? The how to.
Yeah,
okay,
so that goes at the policy and the principle level.
Yeah.
Because biasness does not only be on one, it can even be recruiting, and that's got nothing to do with telco. It could be any organization that builds a model that does not look at it. Actually, in fact, one of the biggest issues globally was this systems that automatically track which candidates is allowed and so forth, filters CVs. And because there is inherent bias built into that, a lot of the good candidates, especially that comes from marginalized backgrounds or certain race or certain religion, were automatically kicked off by the system because the model was fed wrong type of data and the model learned on the wrong data. So credit profiling is another one. And at Axiata example, we came up with 6 principles and the board has approved 6 principles. The principles basically then clearly dictate, because it is extremely hard to codify exactly on every use case what you're going to do, and especially if you work across many geographies. Because the lens that the HR department would be looking at something would be very different to the lens the credit profiling team would be looking at. So you have to come and start at certain level of principles. Those principles then, from a governance perspective as policies, those policies then are being implemented by the right departments, looking at how those policies and principles apply to them.
Okay, great. So there's one last question then. By the way, the gentleman who asked the question earlier, because we're already at 11:15 now, I'm shocked to realize that. He's just saying that, Karamjit, this is the best speakers from you all. They are crystal clear and informative. So thank you, the 2 gentlemen. You got a nice praise online. Excellent. Okay, Ajay, last question then to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. You see, you go to the office around here, you want to go up, you need my IC. Insist on the IC.
Wow.
From what I know, I don't know what is inside my IC, but I know I have money inside.
Oh, touch and go, is it? That's right.
Yeah, of course, with touch and go, right? Can you give me some advice, how safe is this IC?
Wow. I don't know if they are equipped to, and I don't know if somebody else here wants to jump in on that also. How safe is it? Okay, go ahead. Then, Damian.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so look, this then comes back to policy, to national policy. And ultimately, the government mandates how we use information from the IC. So then it's down to companies whether they want to follow the information. And if they don't, whether they want to follow that regulation. If they don't, then it goes back to Abid's point about trust. If they suddenly get embroiled in a situation, in a scandal, where they are misusing your information, the reputational damage is very high for them. So would they risk misusing the information? So the question you need to ask yourself is, who are you giving your IC to? Are you giving your IC to organizations that are large, that are worthy of your trust? Or are you giving your organization, your IC to fly-by-night companies that may misuse that information? Comes down to trust.
Yeah, so
to answer your question, imagine, leave the IC, I give you AK-47 in your hand. And I ask the exact same question you asked me back to you. It's not just what you have, it's what you do with what you have and who uses what they have. And I can hold AK-47 in my hand, but I'm pretty sure you feel very comfortable if that AK-47 is held by a person in a military uniform, trained, and he's holding it. Very different if I give you my 16-year-old the AK-47.
Yeah.
It's the exact same object, am I right? But your trust is completely different between the two. So as I said from the beginning, it's always important that you build trust. And it's important because you're not feeling comfortable because somebody's asking you there. I'm pretty sure if you walk into the bank branch and a bank manager says, "Can I see your IC?" you would give it immediately.
Yeah.
And to your point, I understand that it's a vendor. from this company that is asking for your IC.
Yeah, exactly.
But the company still has liability because it's their company's vendor. If they misuse your information, you go to the company, you don't go to their vendor. So it's down to that company's internal processes on how they vet their vendors, and ultimately it's their exposure.
You know, I was asked not so long ago to come and present at Putrajaya. Just opposite Prime Minister's office is a very nice hotel there.
Okay.
So they asked me a question. You know, does Malaysia need more laws? And I still have that slide. It's actually on an iPad. And I listed every single law that Malaysia has on this consumer protection, data privacy. And I just said to myself, and I shared with the audience, that yes, refreshing our laws to keep it up with global developments, there's nothing wrong with it. But even if I take 10-year-old law and apply it today, it would be better if the enforcement is as good as the law. The issue is the enforcement.
Correct.
That person downstairs asking you for ID and all the details is because there's a lack of enforcement. If we strengthen the enforcement, they would be very careful of asking for an ID. They may still ask you for it, but the controls that will go underneath that to protect your ID, or when you drive to the premium condominium and they ask you to give your ID there, will be very different.
So again, like there's just so many things here to pack and unpack. And, you know, we've gone from a business topic, you know, to us, you individuals who you own data. So there's just so many things to go on. And I guarantee you next year, we're probably going to have another series of 10, panel sessions again, so people can come out and answer. And it's great that you've come out, right? You've given us your most valuable asset, your time. So we really thank all of you, right, for the privilege of your time, for the questions you've asked. And hopefully the panelists will stay around for a little bit longer. I told them they can leave by 11:15. I know Abid has to be somewhere, but just grab them and network with them and talk. And there's so many things going on. Just one last quick thing. I had to do an MRI at a private hospital here. And they gave me my MRI results in a CD. I said, oh my God, they still give it in a CD-ROM. I thought they'll send me a link, right, with my password. And I wanted to go to see somebody a few days ago, and I wanted to show them a picture of my, then I asked my sons to print it to print it out so I can show them the hard copy. Then I realized in my house all my CPUs don't have CD-ROM anymore. I've got one old machine from 2008, but it doesn't work, right? Just keeping it as a museum piece. So I say, oh my God, what do I do with this? And then somebody who works in the hospital said, hey, no, if you download the app, your data, the picture of your CD, your MRI will be there. I said, great. Who told me? He said, no, it's in the form somewhere. Who's going to read the print, right? And I say, insane. So even a large world-class company, one of the largest companies in Malaysia, still not getting it right from a customer point. Okay, last one.
CVS has that issue.
Sorry?
CVS.
Oh, really? I don't know. This is actually another chain. But anyway, with that, thank you all, Damian. Thank you for your time. Again, Abid, right? Thank you for the sharing. Thank you all for your attendance here, for those who are watching. And, you can watch this again when you want to, or share it if you think it's of value to you. And look forward to episodes 6 to 9 and to 10. There'll be more coming this way. Thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam perpaduan, salam Malaysia Madani. I'm pleased to share a groundbreaking initiative that is shaping the future of our nation, the National Data Sharing Policy, or NDSP. In 2022, the government launched the NDSP, a visionary policy that transcends boundaries, encompassing the public sector, the private sector, and the rakyat. This policy holds the key to fostering a data sharing environment that is not only conducive, but transformative. It aims to unleash the true potential of data, improve the quality and transparency of service delivery, stimulate innovation, and drive economic growth through data-driven solutions. The formulation of NDSP envisions a nation where data knows no bounds, where its accessibility and usability are at the core of our digital landscape. By actively engaging in this endeavor, we are laying a strong foundation for the next evolution of our digital ecosystem. We're embarking on a journey to build a stronger and more secure digital foundation for Malaysia. It is the keystone of our digital transformation agenda, empowering us to become a more inclusive, resilient, sustainable, and forward-thinking nation. Embracing responsible and ethical data sharing will unlock significant value for our society and economy, enhancing our competitiveness on the global stage. I encourage all of you to support this policy and explore the vast opportunities that data sharing presents. To raise awareness and gather valuable feedback, we have initiated the NDSP series, a collaborative effort by the Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation, or MDEC, Malaysia Kearney, and Digital News Asia, or DNA, with the support of the Ministry of Communications and Digital. This series aims to educate the public about the benefits and challenges of data sharing, while gathering opinions and suggestions to enhance the policy and its implementation. Your active participation in these discussions will be instrumental in shaping the data sharing practices in Malaysia, leading us towards a secure and dynamic digital world. And let us embark on this remarkable journey together.
Malaysia's digital journey began more than 2 decades ago when MSC Malaysia was set up to transform the country into a knowledge-based economy. Since then, MSC Malaysia has contributed immensely towards the growth of the nation's digital economy. Our next step is to take the digital transformation from the corridor to the world. Introducing Malaysia Digital, a strategic initiative which will empower the rakyat, businesses, and foreign investments. Malaysia Digital will also elevate the participation of Malaysians and local businesses in revolutionizing the world's digital economy. Malaysia Digital opens doors for Malaysians by providing equitable access to digital tools, knowledge, and income opportunities. It offers new business opportunities and growth through a supportive digital ecosystem. It also provides flexible and agile investment facilitation to make the country investment-friendly. The goal is to drive the digital ecosystem and develop the digital economy to a stage where it contributes at least 25.5% of our GDP and creates 500,000 jobs by 2025.
Malaysia Digital will galvanize public-private partnerships to accelerate the growth of our digital economy and drive positive transformation that ultimately benefit the rakyat, businesses, investors, and also the whole nation.
Establishing Malaysia into a digital nation, one with more adept, stronger, and resilient economy, society, and governance. Stepping into tomorrow's digital future today.